Hey everyone. So just it'll be a quick update today. Basically what happened today is that Gabriel's paternal grandparents were called into court called into court today to testify. This morning was interesting. So there was an argument between the defense and the prosecution this morning in regards to whether or not some evidence was going to be, or some of the testimony was going to be stricken from the records, and some was agreed to be stricken because Detective Uribe said something in one of his statements that about not seeing the type of damage that was done to Gabriel in any cases in the past in his entire career, and there was some kind of a ruling in regards to that previously, so that was stricken from the transcripts, and the court went into recess from 10 a.m. until about 1:30 p.m. And when we finally came back, they pulled in 3 or 4 witnesses that were on the defense's witness list. They put them all on hold until November 30th, or on call. So they are not going to testify right now. Can you guys hear me? I can't tell if you guys can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. So they were put on call until November 30th, and then what'll happen is if they're needed, they'll call them in. But as of right now, they're not going to be calling them in. They're on hold. And they were like sort of like character witnesses for Asaro. And the thing about character witnesses, there was a ruling in regards to that kind of testimony in a previous case that set the precedent so that it can't be used in regards to this case. So those testimonies are not going to be heard by the court or for the jurors. Then so when we came back, also what happened is there was the grandparents. So the paternal grandparents were called today, and they live in Mexico, I guess. And so in regards to who lives with who and where the kids are and who's doing what, I don't know. So I can only tell you what I do know. So right now I know that the grandparents, both on the father's side, they both live in Mexico, and they had lived here in Texas for many years. But right now, you can come in. You can come in. I'm just doing the thing. So right now they live in Mexico, and their testimony was basically that Pearl did live there for a couple weeks. They knew them as Arnold's wife, but never saw a wedding or any kind of ceremony take place or know of anything that happened. The reason, so she lived there for 2 weeks, and that was when Ezekiel was about 4 months old. So at that point, they moved out. So there was all this, argument between the Pearl and her husband, for all intents and purposes. And one of the things is that she, at some point in time after they left from Texas, she dropped off Ezekiel and Arnold, which is the other brother that nobody really hears about. And there's a reason, and I'll explain it to you in a moment. She dropped off Ezekiel and Arnold to the grandmother's brother's house. So it just dropped him off. And at that point, he had no idea what to do, because I don't think he had ever met Pearl at that point. And now he's taking care of 2 kids that he has never met. So she literally just dropped them off with him. And so what the man did was call the grandmother, and the grandmother flew out from Texas, came and picked him. Can you close the door? Came and picked up the kids, and then flew them back to Texas. And so basically what they were talking about is how long were they with her, and they were with her for over a year. And then she took Ezekiel, and then at one point they had, I guess, a house in Texas, and she had her kids there. But Arnold was staying with the grandparents, and Grandma went and dropped Arnold to Pearl, thinking that she would take care of her son, and she didn't. He came home. I'm sorry, she dropped him back off 2 or 3 days later to Grandma, and he hadn't, in those days, had not had his clothes changed, hadn't had a bath. So when he got home, she immediately took him and put him a bath and got him cleaned up. And at that point, she found that he had bruises on his body. So I guess the story that she told the grandparents was that she didn't love Arnold, and the reason that she didn't love him was because he was so hard on her during labor. During delivery. So she didn't love her son because her delivery was hard. So she gave him to the grandparents as a gift. At least that's what they understood. At least the grandfather understood as what was happening, is that he was being given over as a gift, and that, so they were very responsible. They loved their grandson, and they took care of him. But basically, the defense was just kind of, again, establishing that she was just not a good parent. And we all know that. So at this point, tomorrow, what we expect, and that was basically the whole story. So that's why Arnold, we don't hear a lot about Arnold, because Arnold has stayed with his grandparents for the majority of his life so far. So I don't know where he's at now, but that's why we haven't heard a lot about Arnold, because him and the youngest child, which is Destiny, those two, by some luck of the draw, I would say, were spared the majority of this, horrendous abuse that was, Pearl. Because we do know, and a lot of people have said things about whether or not Gabriel's brothers and sister said anything, and I want you guys to understand. Please try to understand, in your adult thinking, try to remember that they were all children.